Welcome back! Last time we spoke, we talked about graphic memoirs, and today I'm going to give you some graphic novel recommendations, the fictional kind. First is Lost at Sea by Brian Lee O'Malley. Lost at Sea tells the story of 18-year-old Raleigh, who is on a road trip back home from California to Canada with some kids she went to school with. She didn't go down to Canada with them, though. She went to see an internet boyfriend. And now that she's headed home, she hitched a ride with some people she knew from home. She also believes that her soul might be in a cat. As she's leaving her internet boyfriend's home, she discovers a letter in her luggage, and that letter weighs heavily on the narrative throughout the whole rest of the narrative. This book was vastly different from Scott Pilgrim, the only piece of Brian Lee O'Malley's work I'd read before. I rated it a 4 when I read it, and that still seems about right. The narrative, separate from the action, addresses the shadow of Raleigh's boyfriend, and it is beautiful. There's something quiet, poetic, meditative about this book. If the narration were read aloud, it would have to be read in a whisper, like in a confession. It's very dramatic in its rumination on young love, life, souls, and home. But at 18, who wasn't? Brian Lee O'Malley has captured the earnestly dramatic narration of a lovelorn 18-year-old really well. The dialogue was great, and the art was classic Brian Lee O'Malley. I really think it's something you should give some time to. Next is Chicken with Plums by Marjane Satrapi. Chicken with Plums tells the story of Nasser Ali Khan, Marjane Satrapi's great-uncle. He's a musician who's lost his instrument to it breaking, and after a failed search to find one that was just as good, has decided that life is no longer worth living and he is ready to die. Chicken with Plums tells the story of the 8 days from when he decides that, up to his funeral. Last time I talked about Satrapi's memoir Persepolis, and this one also tells a story from her family. Marjane Satrapi's illustrations are, as always, beautiful, and her storytelling in this is just as good as her storytelling in Persepolis. While on the surface this is a book about Nasser Ali Khan's decision that his life is no longer worth living, I think the book is about more than that. I think it's about what makes life worth living, what makes us want to stay alive and press on. It's beautiful, and I really think you'll like it if you give it a chance. Next is The Encyclopedia of Early Earth by Isabel Greenberg. The Encyclopedia of Early Earth is set in Early Earth, a creation of Isabel Greenberg's wonderful world building, and it tells the story of two people who fall in love, but because of the polarity of Early Earth, can never touch, so instead they tell each other stories. I read this book because Sana of Books and Quills and Jean of Bookish Thoughts recommended it when it first came out, and I am so glad I did. Isabel Greenberg's art is unusual but so breathtaking. Her storytelling is great and her world building is absolutely divine. Anytime someone asks about graphic novels at my work, I recommend this book to them, and I'm recommending it to you too for the same reasons. It's visually beautiful, its storytelling is great, and its world building is absolutely divine. There's also something quiet about this book. Maybe it's the art, which is done primarily in black and white. That style gives a muted aspect to this book that really felt like it latched onto my soul. Next is The 100 Nights of Hero, also by Isabel Greenberg. The 100 Nights of Hero tells a story set in Migdal Bavel, a part of Early Earth, also created by Isabel Greenberg. The story focuses on Cherry and Hero. Cherry is the wife of a rich man who lives in a castle, and Hero is her maid, and they are in love. A friend of Cherry's husband places a bet saying that he can seduce her in 100 nights, and her husband says, if you can do it, you can have my house and my wife. Problem is that Cherry is in love with her maid Hero. So in order to prevent this, Hero tells the man a story every night for 100 nights. It's a bit reminiscent of the Arabian Nights. I also read this one because of Jean, and I'm also so glad I did. At one point in the book, Cherry tells Hero, they will say that was a story about love, and about two girls who wouldn't take shit from anybody. That should tell you pretty much exactly why I like this book so much. As in the Encyclopedia of Early Earth, Isabel Greenberg's artwork here is absolutely gorgeous, and her world building is divine. She could absolutely make you think that Migdal Bavel is the real world and we live within this story. It's so beautiful, it's so poetic, it's so gorgeous. I really think you should give it a try. I actually love Isabel Greenberg's work so much that when I found out a children's book she illustrated was available through my library consortium, I requested it immediately. This is also really good, as expected, and if you have a small child in your life, you should consider buying or borrowing it and reading it to them. Especially if they're the kind who feels a little overwhelmed by the vastness of the world, like me, because this might give them some context and make them feel a little bit better. Next and last, but certainly not least, is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. Nimona is about a shapeshifter, the titular Nimona, who teams up with a local villain, Lord Blackheart, to get up to shenanigans and prove to the rest of the world that one of their heroes is not who he says he is. Nimona was originally published as a webcomic and then put together into a book with some additional stuff as well. This has so much of what I love. Shapeshifting, magic, villainy, mischief, shenanigans, deception, high fantasy, genre bending. It's no wonder that this would wind up on a recommendation list. I love Noelle Stevenson's style, clearly given how much I raved about Lumberjanes last month, and Nimona is no exception. The story is fun and interesting but not without depth, and the characters are likable and enjoyable and also flawed as well. It also blends high fantasy with science and technology in a really cool way. I really enjoyed reading Nimona, and I think you will too. All July, I'm posting a video 3 times a week, every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday, so watch this space. In the comments, tell me about your favorite graphic novels. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.